can we embody love for those around us and for ourselves and do our best? Because this isn't really an easy situation and there's no hack. There's no hack. Like, we're in this.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
My voice is back.
Yay, he's back.
Sorry for that little leave of absence there, but I was sounding like Barry White and was losing my voice every minute. So Sophie was taking over for a little bit. Thank you so much for doing that, babe.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to jump in. This is Sophie month.
Yay.
We get to celebrate you all month.
Yeah. So this is everything that matters to me. It's all over the place, from the moon to intuition, healthy, balanced ways to deal with mental health and your body and to be your most fit, healthy self, but in a balanced, spiritual, emotional, psychological way. And really just sharing some of my favorite humans with you and people that inspire me. So let's jump right into it.
Amen. So I've got my review of the week. Can I get a drum roll, please? Ta-da! Lauren Emerson, you're our review of the week. The Jaffes are a Renaissance couple. That sounds fancy.
Love it.
Sophie and Adi are so talented in all realms: addiction, spirituality, health and wellness, parenting, cooking, and most importantly, they help others. That's in all caps, including me. They dive headfirst into the freezing cold deep end of a pool and hold nothing back. Salt pool, of course. I love that part. I am forever grateful for this podcast and the authenticity they convey. I feel like I know them on a deep personal level, and hopefully I will attend the Ignited Conference next year. I love you both.
Thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Make sure to connect with us and you will receive the Ignited Care Package.
Yes. Another reminder, in case you don't know, we always send out a special package with philosophy superfoods and Ignited gear for whoever wins, whoever's review gets read on air. So make sure that we usually just go to the Apple podcast review section. So make sure you do it there. Yeah. Leave your review, and then if we read it on air, then you get a special package from us.
Amen. All right. And Sophie's got a quote from us from Shay, our guest of the week.
Yes. So, every time a woman listens to her intuition and acts accordingly, she is leading. Every time a woman makes a choice that serves her highest good, she is leading. Every time you do what's best for you, even when it's hard, even when it's painful, even when it means starting all over, you are leading. Shay joined me today. She's so lovely, such a leader, such an inspiration, and doing a lot of parallel work to what Adi and I are doing in the world. She and her partner have a conscious partnering. I think they have a course coming out. They do. She's a spiritual psychologist. The work that her husband is doing in the world, his Instagram is Evolving Man, and he's doing really beautiful work with men to empower them to be the most whole versions of who they really are. And yeah, she's the co-founder of Rising Woman on Instagram, which has over 1 million followers and a beautiful group there. So yeah, just super inspired to have her and share her wisdom with all of you. We talk a lot about anxiety during this time, a lot of unknown, how to be grounded. We really explore ways to share different rituals with you so that you guys can get through this time.
Well, I think I want to talk a little to the actual time of what's happening right now ourselves, because there's a lot, right? This is coming out in the middle of, I would say, the weirdest time in my life.
Yeah.
And so definitely conversations about anxiety and how to lead in these times are really, really important. But we also really want to acknowledge that, you guys are probably feeling some of the anxieties and stresses that all of us are feeling. And this is a time for community. This is a time to connect. I don't think we're going to come out of this as our best selves unless we learn to collaborate, unless we learn to rely on others, unless we learn to ask for help when it's the most difficult. And so I really like that quote, because that's probably true for men and women. It's just that men have been told to follow their inner compass and voice for many, many, many years. And for women, that's maybe a newer recommendation. But right now, there are a lot of tough things you have to decide to do. There are a lot of uncomfortable truths, uncomfortable realities that are coming at us. And
we're having to be alone and be forced with ourselves, and having more alone time to reflect, alone time to not be distracted. The normal distractions of life, of errands and running around and picking things up and meetings and the ongoing saga of life is on pause.
Yeah, just for most of the people that I'm hearing from, that pause is providing a lot of room for anxiety and fear to pop up.
Of course. Yeah, and there's a beauty in that. It's hard for me not to say that there's a beauty in that. Like, that I cried 3 times yesterday, there's a beauty in that. It's breaking me open. It's allowing me to see parts of myself that maybe I haven't looked at in a long time, and parts of the world that maybe I haven't looked at in a long time. There's a lot of problems on our planet, and we keep asking for a shift. We keep asking for a change. We keep politically, with our healthcare system, our society at large, the terrible difference between the super, super poor and homeless and the very, very rich, and that gap. And we keep talking about this for the most part. And now it's here, and we're forced to really look at it, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, we're definitely forced to look at it. I don't think we know what to do about it quite yet.
Sure.
So I think we're just at the beginning of the understanding of what shifts are going to happen. I want to remind everybody, when I say connecting, like Sophie and I do more video chat calls with our family and friends. We really are doing our best to stay sane. I'm doing more service. I'm providing more online groups. For those of you listening, this week we still have 2 free weeks of online groups, and we've now expanded to the point where there is a daily group, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's a group on each one of those days. Relationship groups, trauma groups, women's only groups, sharing groups, etc. This is a time when we need to connect, and we have to, like Sophie said, there's so many things we talk about changing. Well, this is the time to change them, because if we don't adapt, if we don't adjust, if we try to hold on to the way we've been doing things, as this goes on, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're going to slowly lose our mind, because reality has shifted. We're
never going back. We're never going back. We can all say, we just want it to go back to the way it was. That's complete denial. The reality is that we can never go back. Once you've changed, you can't go back to the way things were. We have now lived, and we don't know how long this is going to go on, but we have now lived in a different reality. How we serve from a different place, how we show up to ourselves, the things we say to ourselves, to our loved ones, the way we connect, it's all shifted and changed. And some things, yes, will go back to similar. Most things will be shifted forever. And that hopefully is a good thing. We don't know. But change is good, and it's inevitable, and there's no way around it.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by people's abilities to bounce back from even the craziest occurrences. But I have to say, this is one of the craziest things I've ever lived through, including like a SWAT team arrest. This is just the collective pain that you see and you feel, and I was driving yesterday because I actually had to do something outside, but there's still people functioning out there, but the complete shift in our everyday habits is pretty magnificent. And
we also just want to really encourage, in case no one told you yet today, that all feelings are valid, and that pushing them down to try and avoid the feeling isn't going to make it go away. And the highest form of self-care is fully feeling your feelings. Your feelings are valid. You are safe. You are enough right in this moment. So just keep coming back. You are loved. Everything is going to be okay. And just coming back to these feelings of I am enough. I am safe. And continuing to invite you to practice self-care more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Had to say that again. If you want to join any of the things that we're doing, please either DM us or go look for any of the resources we'll have in the show notes. This is a time to rely on our community.
And stay tuned for this month. We have a lot of really exciting, fun things that inspire me, and we'll make sure there's lots of home practices and things you can do at home. And again, tuning into a D&I on Instagram to see what we're up to. We're both overly sharing and being of service at this time. This podcast forever. Please share it with your friends. It's a free podcast, so use it.
Yep.
We're here for you. Love you guys.
See you on the other side.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com. Okay, everyone, we're back to the interview portion with my beautiful guest, Sheleana. I'm so grateful to have you here. I am actually having my first month ever. April is my birthday month. I'm April 30th, Taurus. So it's going to be kind of like an Earth Mama Sophie month. And I just picked out a few people that felt really aligned with values and things that I care about. So I'm so honored to have you here. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our listeners. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Sheleana Aiyana, and a lot of people call me Shay. I am the founder of Rising Women, which is a platform that my co-founder Heather and I created for women to talk about conscious relationship and self-realization and self-awareness, shadow work, inner child work. And my history comes from one of childhood trauma and just a lot of heartbreak as a young person. And so over the years, I have had a lot of life experiences that have sort of forced me into a position to really look deep within myself, to heal and to find a new sense of safety. And so for me, spiritual healing and doing the inner work has just become second nature. And I really love sharing this work with others. It's just a passion of mine. I've been writing since I was 3. And it just feels like a really beautiful time right now where we have this ability to share with millions of people around the world. So I really feel blessed to have that opportunity.
Same. Well, thank you for being here. I know our community is really going to resonate with this conversation. We could pick any topic and they're going to feel this vibe. So thank you for being here. How long have you and your husband been together?
We have been together for 4.5 years.
Nice. How did you meet?
We met at a coffee shop, actually. I had already gone through a divorce in my early 20s, which is a big part of my awakening as well, my story. But at the time, I had basically turned my house, so I had a few people in. And I remember one of my roommates brought a woman home one night from dancing, and we were all hanging out in the kitchen, and I was baking, and she kept saying to me, and I was like, I don't know, like I don't think so. And she didn't even know me really, so I didn't think that she could be right about that. And everybody kept saying the same thing to him. You got to meet Sheleana. You got to meet her. And so we tried to connect a few times and we didn't. And then one day we just bumped into each other at a coffee shop, and it was like instant friendship. I resisted for a while. I was not interested. I didn't think I would even pursue him as a partner. And then eventually it was just undeniable.
So you hadn't met ever before. Your friends said that you should.
Yeah.
And then you just randomly ran into each other?
Yeah, it was really strange because actually now when we look back and we trace back the timeline, we were always running in the same but we never met each other. Like even me and his best friend were in communication, meeting each other at parties, but yet he and I never crossed paths. Interesting. And there were moments where we could have, but I canceled or vice versa. And it was really interesting because I do believe that we just weren't meant to meet yet. And yeah, so when we connected, I think we had connected on Facebook or something, and we had talked for a few moments, and we had said maybe we would meet up. And then he made a few attempts to meet up, and I sort of just kind of didn't show up. And then after that, we just bumped into each other, and I was like, "Are you Ben?" And yeah, I just loved his energy right away. I was like, "Oh, this guy is amazing." He was so fun and wacky, and I'm a pretty wacky person, so I was like, "Ooh, somebody I can play with." Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And was he already into this was 5 years ago when you met, or you've been? Yeah.
Yeah, we basically met, just under 5 years ago.
And was he doing this sort of work that he's into now? I was looking a little bit at what he does. He seems to be very parallel to what my husband does, addiction and, all of this great like work with men in the world, healing.
Yeah, Ben went into rehab when he was 15. He grew up in quite a tumultuous environment with a brother who was quite a bully. And so there was a lot of acting out. So he went into rehab at 15 for like drinking over excess. And that kind of started his personal development journey. And then he, from there, became a peer counselor. And then he went and got a degree in Lethbridge at the University of Lethbridge for counseling. So he has been an addictions counselor for 15 years. Maybe more than that now, actually, because he's like 30, almost 36. So when I met him, he had already had like over a decade of the work under his belt, and he had, specialized in transpersonal therapy in school. And so it was kind of nice because we had this shared drive and passion for knowing ourselves independently. Like it wasn't something that I had to force him into.
Totally.
When we met, I had a spiritual teacher and transpersonal therapist. I invited him to start studying with him. I was like, hey, do you want to study with this guy and go do a 4-month tantra course in conscious relationship and shadow work in a group of like 20 people for 4 months? Well, we just started dating. I was like, oh, but I've never had a short-term relationship, so I don't think we're going to break up.
What did he say?
He was like, okay, let's do it. And up until me, Ben had not had a serious partnership for like 10 years. For him, he was like, this is so intense.
It's a lot. But he dove in.
Yeah, and you know what? It was amazing because we went right into group therapy basically 2 months into our relationship.
Wow.
So we were like doing tantric breathing, shadow work, revealing our mother wounds, our father wounds. We were processing our shadows. We were going so deep at 2 months. So there was really no time for us to have that normal honeymoon phase where you like hold back parts of yourself that you think maybe somebody won't like. Like we had an amazing 6-month honeymoon phase, but also in that there was so much authenticity that it was really refreshing, I think, for both of us.
Yeah. Adi and I, we practiced radical transparency, and it's something that it kind of fell upon us. It wasn't something that we, like you guys, went into it from the very beginning. Like, this is the way we're going to treat each other and show up for one another. But we went through some crazy cheating and what we thought was sex addiction. He used to be a drug addict. And so we thought it was just displaced and now a new form of acting out with women and lying and hiding. And it was all about that lying and hiding. It wasn't even about the women. And so we broke up for about a year. And then when we got back together, I knew that we needed to see a therapist 100%. That was like, there's no option. And we were very actively seeing our own therapists, seeing one together, hours and hours of groups, and just super intense. And this was kind of like almost prescribed to us because of what we had been through. But what a gift to go through it from the very beginning and to practice radical transparency. Like that's the gift. That is the way that we live our lives now in everything, with our friendships, with our children, with anything and everything. That's just the way that we are. But for us, it's like we had to almost like survive. In order to survive and to stay together and to elevate our relationship, we had to change the way we are dynamic. And so amazing that you guys got to do that. What did you call it?
Transpersonal therapy.
And what's that?
Essentially bridging the esoteric and the psychological. So,
like spiritual psychology too, in effect?
Essentially, like our teacher, he came from a lineage of like Osho and Gurdjieff. These are like old school teachings. And he blended A Course in Miracles, Jungian shadow work, Tibetan Tantra, and, just the esoteric.
Wow.
So it was really in depth and really transformative and very, very hard work, because you're essentially just putting your ego into a pressure cooker consistently. So some real, dark night of the soul moments. It wasn't easy, but it was also really incredible for us because we really learned who we are underneath it all. We really were able to tear down some of those walls and some of those layers that were preventing us from embodying our true essence. And of course, we have so much more to go. The work has just begun. But having that foundation together, like we did it for 4 years straight, basically. We then became initiated as teachers and we started teaching with our teacher. And then Heather and I, we partnered on Rising Woman about 2 years after I started it. And her and I started running women's groups. And then we were like, let's just do Rising Woman together. It just makes sense. And we're opposites. So it's actually the perfect partnership because everything that I'm here to do is the opposite for her. And the things that I don't like doing, she loves doing, vice versa. And so when we partnered, Rising Woman really started to take fire because we're in it together. And so in a way, I think this work has helped me in all sorts of ways in various partnerships. Because like I have basically a marriage with my business partnership. And then I also have a real marriage in a romantic sense with Ben, and actually find partnership and relationship quite challenging. I'm very much a hermit and could easily go off into the mountains in the forest and be alone and be ecstatic there. So my greatest challenge is in relationship. So it's just kind of funny that I find myself in these two like really into
What's your sign?
I guess it depends on what you're asking. So in Vedic astrology, I am a Capricorn with a Virgo moon and Libra rising. And I actually follow more Vedic with the nakshatra system. So it's essentially the constellations that are around the planets. So there's 27 nakshatras and they all represent a different symbol, a different deity or god, and they have an animal symbol as well. And then what I see the nakshatras as well is sort of like a representation of a karmic path. So when you look at your Vedic chart and you see what your nakshatra is in each placement, it can kind of give you some hints as to what your soul is here to transcend.
Ooh. I want to know what mine is.
I can tell you after we do this.
Great. I can't wait. I'll share it in the intro once we establish what it is. So, we're going through, thank you for sharing all of that. We're going through a wild time. And I think, this is being recorded in mid-March and this is going to come out in April. And I don't think much will calm down before then. That's just my instincts. What are your personal, obviously we're not scientists, we're not doctors, we're not, experts in that sense at all, but as a spiritual, leader and practitioner, what are your feelings on, like, what is the shadow work here? Like, as a collective, as a planet, like, what can we be hunkering down as a collective and doing? What is our work here? What is it? What are we trying to reveal? What is the planet trying to tell us?
Well, I mean, just from what the planet is trying to tell us, I mean, my guess would really be to pay attention, to understand our impact and to understand our connection. What I see, and I've been seeing this in my own community as well, is this dissonance between saying that we want village and that we want community, yet being unwilling to make sacrifices or to inconvenience ourselves in order to have that community. And so right now, what it feels like is we're being asked to look at how we make everything about us and to step out of this individual mindset and start to think as a collective. Because I keep hearing people say, well, I'll be fine. Well, I'm not worried. I'll be fine. Therefore, I'm not going to take any precautions, or I'm not going to do this because it's not going to impact me. And my response to that is, but it's not just about you. What about your grandparents? What about your best friend's grandparents? What about your best friend's mom who's in the hospital right now because she has a weakened immune system? What about the neighbors who have autoimmune issues? What about them? And this is the thing, is we're so wired to think individual. We're so wired to think me, me, me. And in times like this, we really get to see our own minds around it. And we get to see our resistance to, making sacrifice for the collective. And I think that we're being called to, this is sort of like a test run. Like, can we work together? Can we be a team?
Yeah. I mean, so many things that you said resonate. This deep desire to connect and feel connected is constantly talked about, desired. And like you said, it's the opportunities right here in front of us. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to create? And thank goodness we have this virtual, from social media platforms to podcasts to live streaming. I love that people are still connecting and that you said yes to doing this in such like a challenging, emotional time. I think that this is the time that it's more needed than ever. And that these conversations need to be had so that even one person can feel affected and open their minds and their hearts to where they, as the individual, can change and bend for the collective, and how much work needs to be done. And that the universe has been trying to get our attention. The planet has been crying out, and we don't listen. We look the other way when it comes to climate change, when it comes to, our rainforests, when it comes to the hungry, when it comes to all of these huge issues that are happening right before us every single day, like the homeless problem in LA. It makes me cry every single day I pass. There are tents and tents and tents and little villages of people that are homeless. And whatever you believe in politically, it's a reality. We have a problem. There are hungry children in our city. They're hungry in our world. Of course, I'm just speaking what I see immediately right in my neighborhood and right in my city and right in my village. No one does anything about it. We all talk. We all see it. We turn the other way. No one's doing anything real, which is so painful. And it's time to actually have to sit in it. And the fact that we aren't allowed to leave our homes and we have to sit and look at all the destruction we've created is the work, is to sit in the gunk. And as someone who does the work and someone who has shown up to the heartbreak, to the trauma, to the pain, that is the magic, is sitting in the shit. And that is that is the beauty of the lotus, is sitting in the gunk so that it can grow. And I think right now, like, I don't know personally as the collective, like, what we have to do for this exact situation, but in a spiritual, emotional sense, what keeps calling out to me is just sitting in it. And people don't like to sit in the uncomfortable. Yet that is exactly where we're going to find the answers. And if for me personally, when I'm quiet and in those early morning hours or in the middle of the night when I'm woken up, that's when spirit speaks to me. That's when the answers come to me. That's when I can feel like I understand. And I feel like a lot of people feel uncomfortable in that space of nothingness and without the distractions of the everyday.
Well, and there's just so many different circumstances right now that I think we could only begin to scratch the surface of what must be going on for people. I was doing just some morning stretching and I was laying there thinking about how many people were planning to leave their abusive partner this week, or how many people are now stuck in a home that is dangerous with somebody who normally would go out to work and they would get that 7 hours or 8 hours of relief per day from them. How many people are always starving? I was thinking too about the people on our downtown east side, and I thought nothing new for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you speak about that, and it's true. It's in my mind as well of just how privileged we really are to not have to think about these kinds of things, but also there is a wake-up call happening where we're being asked to just consider our global family and seeing how connected we are. And I think that a lot of people already know that, and they've already been fighting for people to recognize that. And there are a lot of people who are trying, and what we see is that it actually takes a team, it takes a global family to actually make change. So no matter how hard we try, we can't change other people. It really requires us all to look inward. And there are little things we can do right now just to be loving and kind and compassionate, and to explore what comes up in our own minds and our own fear system and our anxiety around scarcity and not enoughness. And
I'd love to hear more from you on that. And I think that could be a really tangible kind offering to our listeners. It's just, I think anxiety is definitely at the forefront of everybody's body and mind. I know you've done some work in anxiety and spoken to it. So if you want to share maybe whatever's coming up right now for you and as an offering to our peeps.
Yeah, I feel that right now, one of the best things we can do is just remember that how we all experience this is valid, and that we're spending a lot of time shaming each other for how we're showing up. And that's not really that useful, because we're all coming from our past conditioning. And a lot of times that means that there's a lot of trauma behind that behavior. So when people are running around panicking and behaving in ways that, doesn't seem useful, and ultimately it's not useful. But when we're judging it, what we have to remember is that there's something else behind that. And so instead of creating more separation by judging everyone around us, we really need to slow down and start to see each other as innocent. And that's sort of just like a basic practice in a lot of esoteric teachings, and in just see everyone as innocent. And that's a practice that I think we could all take on right now, even though it's hard, is to see the innocence in ourselves and in the ones around us. And also to just remember that self-care is going to be really important right now. And it does not look like the trendy form of self-care. It's going to look like being radically honest with our family members about what's happening in our minds and asking for support. It's going to look like really creating plans in our family systems, if we live with others, for how we're going to communicate, how we're going to handle being inside of our homes together. Like, what are the boundaries around how we show up when we're feeling irritated or anxious or just pissed off, right? Because of course tensions are high, and you want your home to be a peaceful sanctuary, a safe haven. So self-care to me looks like working on that, and reducing anxiety really comes with knowing that we are ultimately supported. And unfortunately, not everybody can guarantee that right now, because there's a lot of uncertainty. And so how do you completely eliminate anxiety when you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, or when you don't know how you're going to get food. And so there's no easy answer for that. I think that the idea that we can just eliminate anxiety right now, how can we work with it?
How can we work with that?
It's asking for help as best as we can. It's being honest with others. It's staying connected in any way. I'm going to be doing a lot more on Instagram through LinkedIn, and I'm in the process of putting together some collaborations to just support our global community in any way we can, with hosting circles online where we can just sort of be heard and be held, meditations. And I think that that's really what it comes down to, is can we embody love for those around us and for ourselves and do our best? Because this isn't really an easy situation, and there's no hack. There's no hack. Like, we're in this.
We're in this. And I think just like any situation where we feel out of control, again, it's not about, if you're in a depression, it's not about how can I feel happy, because you're not necessarily going to get to that place. And happiness isn't a destination. It's what practices can I embody to balance this anxiety? And like you said, that means if you have increased anxiety or increased tension, you have to increase the opposite, which would be self-care, self-love, the kindness that you put out, and then that comes back to you. And the cool thing is that by being in this, for me, I have 3 kids, and they are sponges, and I see directly, I can see the micro in this home of like, when I keep everything clean, when everything's organized, when I light candles, when I am centered, when I have done my practices to ground, they feed off that energy. And that is the macro, is that as everyone's flipping out and ungrounded and spiraling out of control, they're spreading that energy, and it's becoming mayhem and panic. And that's what the toilet paper is about. And that's what all of it is just, everyone is going off each other's emotions, and the unknown makes us feel so uncomfortable. But in reality, is there ever really a known? Like, is there ever a guarantee day to day, really? Is there? Because I don't think there is ever. That's why right now, although my daily life is disrupted, I'm actually fine, because I don't ever think there's a known. I never feel like, and I'm comfortable with that. So I think the question is like, how do you, and that's asking the listener, this is a moment for you to go inward and ask, what do I need? And become aware of what you need to fill yourself up with, so that you can hold space and ground down. Like, I'm eating more grounding foods right now. Not just because I'm bored, because I'm actually craving to be more grounded, so that I don't kind of fly away into the ethers and feel lost, because I know myself, and I have a tendency, and I need to, as a Taurus, I need to like ground. That's important for me. And when I start spiraling, then it only affects my children, my micro world, right? Is there certain meditations or maybe morning practices, or even maybe as someone feels themselves get caught up in the anxiety spiral, is there something that they can come back to? Maybe it's a journal practice or a breathing exercise.
Yeah, I'm going to be putting more of this stuff out over the coming weeks. What I would say is just remember in every moment that we're going to have waves. Some of us are going to be stronger in this emotionally, and others, there are some people who are in the midst of a divorce, or they've just had their heart broken, or they've just lost somebody close to them, and they've already not felt safe their entire lives. And so those people are going to need those of us who feel strong enough to hold a collective space to do. And so let's just take that into account. And if you're not able to, then that's okay too. And just make sure that we're all staying connected in whatever way that we can. One of the things that I really think helps is doing just grounding practices where in any moment where we're feeling really anxious or really freaked out, like we just want to jump out of our skin, to take a moment and just take some deep breaths and to just feel the sensations in our bodies. Like, what are the tingles in your leg? Or is there tightness somewhere? Is there tension in your face? And just breathe into that space. And then open your eyes and look around the room and notice and name objects. And just keep repeating to yourself, I am here. I am in this space. I am here now. And remind yourself and your unconscious, like, you're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're here right now and you're safe. And that can be something that you might have to do 10 times a day. And I've been there. I've been in moments of sheer anxiety in my history where I had to do something like that over and over and over just to stay sane. And it's okay if you need to do that. It might sound trivial, like, oh, just look around and name objects in the room, like, give me a break. But, these are basic somatic practices that therapists use to help people who are recovering from trauma to regulate their nervous system. That's why it's so wonderful, because actually as human beings, we do have what we need in order to rewire and to feel safe and to heal. So I would suggest doing that a lot. I also created a Healing Your Inner Child meditation that's free. It's on our website, on risingwoman.com. And there's so many free resources, like go on YouTube and find yoga, or some Qigong, or look up a Marianne Williamson meditation. Like, find the free resources right now if you're on a budget or if you're out of work. There's so much out there. And another thing that I love to do really is watch interviews. Like, I've been doing a bunch of interviews with experts lately and putting them on YouTube, but there's just a wealth of information out there that's focused on mindset and self-awareness. And you could go down a rabbit hole like that instead of Netflix.
Exactly. Or even instead of, I think I definitely, again, with like not wanting to shame, I think there's a beauty in Netflix if it's allowing you to let go. And I think we have a choice in each moment of, what do we want to feed? So definitely if it's between doing something educational or going down the rabbit hole of anxiety and looking more things up about the virus, or, spiraling out in that way, for sure, pick that. But I think whatever you can do, I think Netflix is very like neutral, unless, just like anything, you're abusing it. So check in with yourself and just see, just like any behavior, like sex inherently isn't a bad thing. We need it for pleasure. We need it for procreation. We need it for so many things, but you could abuse that and have sex 100 times a day. And then that's probably not something that you want to be doing, but check in with yourself. Same with Netflix. For me, as someone who does have it all together or seems to, quote marks, it's for someone who's so wound up from the minute her child wakes up until the minute they go to sleep and everything in between, Netflix is medicine for me. And we talk about this also on our podcast, like nothing is inherently good or bad. So for sure, we encourage you to chill, watch a movie, enjoy yourself, and also take this time to grow. Take this time to expand, to try some things that you maybe have been wanting to do and be putting off. Online fitness classes, yoga, Qigong. If you've never tried something like that, try something new. I love that.
Yeah. And it's just important that we take into consideration what kind of media we're taking in. I love watching Netflix. I watch it all the time. And I also have a strong sense of what impacts my nervous
psyche.
And for me, I know that when I practice a sport, science has really shown that I can practice in my mind and have the exact same results as if I were to physically practice. So to me, that says, so if I'm watching violence on TV, that most likely my subconscious and my psyche isn't registering that that's not real. And we do know that when we watch certain things that we are spiking our stress levels, we're jacking up all of our adrenaline. And so if we're already an anxious person, we're stressed out and we think that we're going to turn that off by watching.
Right.
So like find a balance for you.
Let's find a conscious choice of what we're consuming. Yeah.
I know this is so funny. It's so dorky, but I have this thing for old period pieces that are like in the 18th or, the 15th to 18th century that have very little violence. And I loved watching Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah. Obsessed.
And people are like, wow, like that's so dorky. But I really do love finding shows that I can get into that I don't have to worry about seeing a lot of gruesome violence. And it's because I know what that can do to the mind.
Absolutely.
So I'm just suggesting that we all be mindful right now. Like,
exactly.
There are certain things that I think we could do in the moment that we think is going to calm us down, but actually we're making it worse. So
tuning inward and figuring out what works for you may not work for me, it may not work for her or him, and just really tuning in. This is a time of really checking in with ourselves multiple times a day.
Yeah. And what's kind of neat about this is that, a lot of us don't spend much time alone or introspecting. And so there is an opportunity here for those of us who have the privilege of doing so to really go in and learn about ourselves. And that can be a really beautiful journey as well.
Are you a new mama?
No.
No? Why did I think that you were?
Well, I do have a puppy, so.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. You have a new puppy?
He is 6 months now.
Okay.
And he is all the baby that I need.
Right now. Do you guys want kids?
No, I am not sure. I used to want kids, and I'm not sure if that's something that I want to do anymore. I do feel that adoption feels really good to me. And so we've talked about that.
Beautiful.
There's like millions of children in orphanages. Like maybe we should just travel the world and wait until our child finds us. And so I'm really open. Like Ben would like to have kids as well. And it's just, there's no timeline. I'm trusting that it's going to happen as it's meant to.
I love that. It's beautiful. Is there anything else before? I always ask our listeners 5 questions, so I want to do that with you. But is there anything else you want to share with our group here? You said you have an online, so you have your website, and what's offered on the website?
We do write articles. I write blog posts just kind of based on the work. Our main platform is Instagram, so we have over 1 million people following us there, where you can get just daily support and insights. I write almost every single day there, so you can come follow us there. I do put out free offerings from time to time. We have a inner child meditation, like I mentioned, and then Heather and I, we've updated a Mystic Moon calendar that she created, and we also have our paid membership programs. So we have an 8-week program called Heal Your Relationships. We take you through 8 weeks of shadow work, conscious relationship, healing your abandonment wound, inner child work. We have a psychotherapist and a family counselor that work in a private group with you. And then we also have another program called Becoming the One. That's about building that internal foundation and getting to know yourself so that you can attract and create healthy love from a really self-aware place. So we talk about, core values and what are your expectations and how realistic are those, and, what are your boundaries and what's important to you, and what's in the way, what are your relationship patterns. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that. And do you and your husband do work together?
No, we've sort of started, we do podcasts together. I'm so hesitant to work with him. We're both alpha people who are both really stubborn and self-directed and independent. So I really enjoy collaborating with him, and we really love working with couples together. But we don't do anything officially because I think that that's best for us. So we're talking about creating a couples course, and that's like the only way that we will work together is when we're doing couples work, because it's so spirit-led that there's no room for ego to get in the way.
We're the same way. We're the exact same way. We do work with couples. We do workshops, we do retreats, and that work is just, it comes through us. And now we have our podcast together, which is lovely, but the first year was awful. It was awful. And, and we were very transparent and honest about that. It's hard. It's hard when you have 2 very strong opinionated, beautiful humans that both want their voice heard. But it's also a great challenge. It's a beautiful challenge. And now I'm so grateful that he forced me to do this podcast, or else I wouldn't have met you.
Totally. I love it. And that's the thing, is what Ben and I have learned is that we have opposite traits in many ways, and we do things very differently, even down to just how we look at money. And we used to have judgments of each other for that. And we used to sort of criticize each other in that. And now what we see is that what we're being asked to do is get the medicine from our partner. So that we go in appreciation for our partner's differences, the more we integrate that. And so I actually no longer need Ben to balance me out in certain ways, because I've really watched and learned and appreciated and integrated it. So I've become more integrated and more functional because of him, and he is balanced in other ways. Like he's more discerning now because of me. And so we've really learned how to see each other as our teachers rather than, you know, judging each other for being so different. And I think that's the gift. And still like, working together in a business sense. I'm like, we have lots of time.
Yes, baby steps. Yeah, we've been together lifetimes. We have like 10 years on you guys. So it's you chip away. You can get more used to it. So we ask everyone that comes on our podcast 5 questions. And people say this is their favorite part. So what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh my goodness.
And it's whatever comes to mind. There's no right and wrong, of course.
It's a good. Okay. This is a very good question, and it's very deep. So I don't know that there is like a specific line that I could give you, but the first word that pops into my mind when you ask that is impermanence. Something around Buddhist teachings around impermanence, and really remembering that be our last moment, and how we show up in every single moment makes such an impact. And so in some of the Buddhist traditions, they talk about like your last thought being what indicates how you'll reincarnate. So I'm always thinking about, how am I loving? Am I listening? Am I being compassionate? And that's been a long journey for me in just trying to keep that really close to heart all the time.
Do you remember who gave you that advice?
I think that I read it in a Buddhist book somewhere long time ago.
Beautiful. What about your proudest moment to date?
Well, I would say my proudest moments in general are when my partner and I transcend conflict, because I'm, coming from a lengthy history of childhood trauma, and being a runner, I have learned to do it all on my own. And so every time we come up against something and I want to run, and instead I stay in the game and I go deeper, I feel really proud of myself.
So beautiful. I love that so much. And what about if you flip that upside down, your hardest moment?
Oh my goodness. I've had so many hard moments. It's hard to even say what my hardest moments have been. I'd say a lot of my hardest moments have been around either dealing with abandonment or dealing with the aftermath of abandonment. So in my adult life, one of my hardest moments was when I was in my 20s and it sort of ripped open all of my childhood wounds. And I had to feel all of the pain from all of the trauma that I endured that I never processed. Basically all at once, because I had just sort of put a lock on it. That was really hard.
And what about self-care? We talked pretty much this whole episode about taking care of ourselves, but what are your personal practices, and do they change day to day? I'm assuming they probably do. What's your go-to?
I'm so not one of those like super regimented people. My husband is. It's amazing to watch him.
Mine too.
He's got his routine, and it's just so solid. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I am not consistent.
Same.
The things that I love doing, though, that I do every single day are go for really long walks. I go for really long walks every day. And every night before bed, pretty much, we go for like an hour and a half walk.
Beautiful.
And another piece of self-care for me is really checking in every day. Is there anything that I'm avoiding that's causing me stress or anxiety that I could deal with? That would allow me to feel better in the long run, even if it sucks right now.
This podcast is called Ignited. What ignites you?
What ignites me is connecting people to their true selves, to their true essence, to helping people really reveal what's underneath their masks and what's underneath their pain. Because I believe that we're all here to be of service. And the only way to do that is by healing. So I love the process of watching somebody come into themselves and really realize that all of their pain or their heartache or their misfortune is actually such a gift, and that it's like a pathway for them to get to know themselves better.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here during this time, especially. I personally really appreciate the, the commitment and also just showing up. So thank you. Thank you, Shay. Nice to meet you, and keep in touch.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.